Tutorial for this Heart Tablerunner, Part 2. We're going to talk about thread colors first. So let's take a look at our Tablerunner. It's all loaded and ready to go. I just got the side clamps on, and those are also ready to go. Now my Tablerunner has fairly solid fabrics for my hearts. So a lot of quilting is going to show up there, and also on all this background fabric. It's all scrappy, different colors or different tones of this gold color, but quite a bit of quilting is going to show up, especially like this right here is completely plain. This is completely plain. So a lot of quilting will show up. If you're using fabric on your runner that is very busy, something like this fabric, you wouldn't want to spend a whole lot of time quilting fancy designs on a really busy fabric because it's just not going to show up. So that's the first thing I wanted to discuss. Maybe your hearts are very plain, but your background is super busy. And if that's the case, then you don't want to spend a whole lot of time doing custom work on a busy background. And then vice versa, if your hearts are really busy, but maybe your background is plain, then you can spend more time doing some pretty designs, some custom work on that plain fabric. Next, I want to talk about thread color. I've got some red thread here, and I'm still deciding what I'm going to quilt on this as I'm going through this process of getting everything ready and just thinking about what my Tablerunner looks like, what's going to show up where. I also have this gold thread, and if I use it on the red, it's definitely going to show up quite a bit. And then I have this more of a tan thread, and these are all Omni threads. They're 40 weight. And this one, I think you can see how much that gold one really shows up in the middle. It's going to show up the most. This tan one blends in a little bit more, and then obviously the red would blend in the best. So what I'm deciding now is if I want to do thread changes or if I want to do one thread on everything. So that's another decision that you'll have to make about your runner. The other thing I'm going to think about is, do I want to have my border stand out from the rest of my background fabric? So I have got sashing here, and I've got this sashing that's on the border. And I think what I would like to do is do a tighter quilting all in this background, these triangles here, and behind the heart in this section and this section. So if I do tighter quilting all in these areas, then this part's going to pop out a bit more. And that also means I'm going to do a little less dense quilting on my border and my sashing pieces. So that's my plan for this quilt. I'm going to do more dense quilting in here, a little less dense on my heart and on the sashing and or this border area. Now there are so many different directions that you could go with quilting this. You could do a feathered heart if you have very plain fabrics. You could do something different in each strip, and that's what I think I'm going to be doing. You could even do an all-over design on a runner like this if you have very busy fabrics. You could do a simple loop with a heart design or something like that that would fill the entire Tablerunner. It just really depends on your fabrics and how much time you want to spend on quilting this project. So those are some things to consider while you're thinking about what to quilt, what threads you may want to use, what's going to blend or what's going to stand out. I am so ready to get my thread loaded on the machine and to get started on this quilt. But there's one thing I want to do before that, and we're going to go over to the long arm and talk about just a few things. Take a look at my needle area. I have got some fuzz and thread buildup there, and I want to clean all of that off and get it nice and cleaned up. And I'm also going to show you underneath here. We've got a lot of fuzz going on, and I want to go in and get all of that fuzzy stuff cleaned out. We want to have all of that ready to go so that this quilt doesn't get little fuzz bundles on the back, and that it's just going to run nice and smooth. I'm going to take a few minutes. I'll wipe down my rails and my table and just do a quick wipe down of everything to get everything ready to go. I'll get my thread loaded, and then I'm going to get some music on and get working on this quilt. Choosing the right thread can be a big difference between your quilt looking good and your quilt looking not so good. Here's another trick that you could try. What I did was I took a picture of the quilt block, and then I printed out quite a few of those pictures. And then what I'll show you next are some ideas of what you could try on your Hearts Tablerunner. This first picture is very similar to what I actually did on the hearts. I changed a little bit at the bottom, and I added some wiggly lines in the middle. And this is a little more advanced with the feather and intricate quilting. This next one is an example of an all-over heart with loops. This design is pretty simple on the heart with loops and wiggly lines, but then a little more advanced with the echoed swirl. You could do that over all of the cornerstone blocks, all the sashing borders, all of that. This one has the feathered heart, and these are very quick sketches. I just did the outside of the heart and left the middle with a simple loop, and then repeated that loop on the blocks around the heart, and then added that simple swirl on the sashing. And then this one is just an all-over echoed heart design, and that would be something that would work great if your fabric is very busy. I hope this has helped give you some ideas of what to quilt on your Hearts Tablerunner, and I can't wait for you to share pictures and see how yours turned out.